Quite often when I see the problem of blobbing in COH3 being discussed, people will say that negative cover needs to be reintroduced. I should begin by clarifying what negative cover is, because those of you that didn't play earlier versions of Company of Heroes will be unfamiliar with what it does. Cover is terrain or objects that provide infantry with defensive bonuses, but negative cover is the opposite, terrain that makes infantry easier to kill. In COH2 there were two types of negative cover: road, which made infantry on roads 25% easier to hit, they would take 25% more damage and 25% more suppression. The other type is water, which made infantry 50% easier to hit, and they would take 50% more damage from small arms fire, but the normal 100% damage from other weapon types. On the maps added to COH2's auto match rotation, towards the end of the game's patch history, you will notice that very few of them have negative cover. Why is that? Because in practice, negative cover didn't just punish blobs, it also made blobs way better. If you sent a single squad over negative cover, it would drop models so quickly that you would lose basically any engagement. This encouraged camping on your side of negative cover, then sending multiple squads over in a group at once. This allowed you to overwhelm a solitary enemy, and the losses from crossing negative cover wouldn't grind your push to a halt. You just needed to find the right place to attack with your blob, and then it was far more effective than crossing with single squads. On the other side of things, at high ranks, players got very good at running their blobs into a unit's retreat path where it crossed over negative cover, and using those penalties to amplify damage and secure squad wipes. Because unit preservation is so important in Company of Heroes, getting wipes like this will give you a larger advantage than the map control you sacrificed while blobbing. Though I could also imagine that because body blocking like this isn't possible in COH3, that blobbing into negative cover retreat paths would be less of an issue than it was in COH2. I believe negative cover in COH2 promoted both camping and blobbing, which co-players generally do not like, so the map makers stopped putting negative cover on their maps. Even though this meant that the roads on these maps would be in appearance only and provide no speed bonuses to vehicles, a heavy cost to pay. So if negative cover was to make a return to Company of Heroes 3, this is what I would do: remove the bonus damage and accuracy, but keep the suppression bonus. On top of this, I think it would be cool if these areas were more resistant to creating light cover craters from artillery hits, allowing negative cover to serve its role as a suppression amplifier deeper into a match. Water already prevents light cover craters from forming underneath it, so maybe map makers could lean on this more as a gameplay design choice rather than for aesthetics only. And roads could make smaller craters when hit by artillery, or require more hits before craters would start to form. This could allow a solitary machine gun to suppress a blob without getting overrun by a frontal attack, which is pretty common once the blob has a bit of light cover to stand on.
Heavy machine gun crew killed.
It is also pretty common for an HMG to get overrun by a high vet squad with an LMG in light cover, and both of these cause machine guns to plummet in value late game. However, I think at this stage of COH3's life cycle, negative cover being added seems unlikely, because it would require some work to the game's systems, and a large amount of work adding negative cover to the sizable map pool. All of that work for an unproven idea on how it may be beneficial to gameplay. If you're enjoying my videos, I hope you consider coming on board as a Patreon backer.